Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're a man who's ever walked away from a relationship feeling confused, used, or disrespected, you're not alone. This is one of the most common struggles I hear from men. Why does this keep happening to me? They find themselves manipulated, financially taken advantage of, or emotionally drained. And it's not just once, it's a pattern that keeps repeating. But here's the truth, these situations don't happen by accident. They stem from deeper, often hidden patterns within ourselves that quietly shape who we allow into our lives and how we respond to mistreatment. This video isn't about blaming or shaming anyone. It's about understanding why some men are more vulnerable to manipulation and how to break free from that cycle once and for all. We will look at the early signs you may be ignoring, the hidden reasons behind your tolerance for disrespect, and the internal shifts that can help you regain control, build healthier boundaries, and ultimately attract the kind of relationship you deserve. So watch to the end, because sometimes the key to real change isn't just seeing others more clearly, it's learning to see yourself more clearly too. Let's get started. Number 1. She showed you just didn't want to see. After a breakup or betrayal, most men sit with the bitter taste of disappointment and mutter the exact words, "She lied to me," or "She wasn't who I thought she was." But the truth rarely lies in deception, it lies in subtle exposure. Women don't usually conceal who they are. They communicate it clearly, not always through what they say, but through what they do. The warning signs are almost always there from the beginning. The problem isn't that she changed. The problem is that you were too hopeful, invested, or focused on the potential rather than the present to notice. She didn't lie when she pulled away emotionally early on. She didn't lie when she was cold to the waiter or dismissive of your time. She didn't lie when she mentioned how past partners never measured up, or when she showed irritation at simple acts of compromise. These weren't random quirks, these were previews. But when a man wants something to work badly enough, he justifies instead of observing. He tells himself she's misunderstood, or just needs time, or that he can be the one who makes it all better. In doing so, he turns a blind eye to what is already being revealed. Every woman tells you who she is early on, not with declarations, but with energy, patterns, and choices. A woman who values connection will make space for it. A woman who lacks empathy will show disregard in small but consistent ways. A self-centered woman will prioritize her needs without apology, and the man watching closely, not listening only to words but watching actions, won't be surprised later. He'll understand that her behavior was never hidden. He just needed the courage to accept it at face value. It's easier to believe we were tricked than to admit we ignored what was right before us. But strength in relationships doesn't come from protecting illusions. It comes from paying attention and recognizing when someone is showing us a version of themselves that doesn't align with what we genuinely need. The hardest part is not loving someone's potential, but accepting their reality. If she keeps showing you the same truth, believe her. She's not lying, she's exactly who she is, and you can choose whether that truth belongs in your life. She didn't lie, you just chose not to see. Let that phrase echo, let it teach you, because the next time you meet someone, your most significant advantage won't be charm or confidence, it will be awareness. Not of what you hope to find, but of what's already being shown. Number 2. Red flags are always present, you just overlook them. Most men don't miss red flags, they choose not to see them. In the early days of a new connection, desire has a way of blinding reason. She shows up in clothes designed to capture attention and perhaps flaunts a sexual boldness that feels thrilling at first. It's flattering and disarming, but few ask why such intimacy is freely given. Early behavior isn't just personality, it's often a preview. If boundaries are casual initially, they may remain that way throughout. And then there's the way she speaks about her past. The man who came before you is always a shadow in the room. If every story is about how he was controlling or he was the villain, yet she takes no accountability for her own, that isn't just venting, it's a window into how conflict is handled. Worse still is when she admits she's still emotionally attached to someone she claims was toxic. If love and chaos are tied together in her mind, expect the same confusion to visit your relationship too. One of the most telling signs is how she treats the people for whom she already has responsibility. If she has children and withholds them from their father for reasons that sound more emotional than logical, listen closely. If she's willing to weaponize access to her child, what makes you believe she won't do the same with you if things ever fall apart? These are not just isolated behaviors, but patterns waiting to repeat themselves. Red flags don't shout. They whisper. They show up in throwaway comments and inconsistent actions, in the way she handles boundaries, respect, and accountability. You may think she's just wounded or misunderstood. You tell yourself everyone deserves a chance. But relationships are not built on potential. They are built on patterns, and a pattern ignored early becomes pain accepted later. The most brutal truth for men to accept is this: the signs were there from the beginning, but when the chemistry is high and emotion runs ahead of reason, the instinct to overlook them feels easier than confrontation. Yet the cost of ignoring those signals is always paid later with interest. What seems like empathy in the beginning often turns into regret. Her choice in presenting herself speaks to how she will behave once the mask drops. If what you see early on causes you to make excuses, pause. The way she treats others, her stories about her exes, and how she speaks about responsibility are not coincidences, they're clues. And if you're willing to pay attention, they'll tell you everything you need to know. Number 3. Women choose the men who let them misbehave. In every relationship dynamic, a silent test is given, often unnoticed but always present. Some women don't test to destroy, they test to define. They push limits, bend rules, and observe responses. And while men often mistake these moments as random outbursts or mood swings, they're more than that. They're subconscious evaluations of how much she can get away with, and more importantly, what kind of man she's dealing with. A woman who carries emotional chaos, unhealed wounds, or deep-rooted entitlement doesn't feel safe around a man with firm, immovable boundaries. His firmness unsettles her because it mirrors something she can't control, so instead she gravitates toward the ones who bend. The ones who hesitate to say no. The ones who fear conflict and crave validation. These men, often unaware, become enablers, not partners. They confuse tolerance with love and patience with emotional strength, when in reality, they're quietly being trained to accept behavior She'll raise her voice and watch how you respond. She'll cancel plans at the last minute, disregard your time, flirt in front of you and twist your words, and if you let it slide once, you've just handed her the blueprint for future behavior. And if you continue to allow it, she will repeat it and lose respect. Because, deep down, a woman doesn't admire what she can control, she admires what she can trust. And trust only exists when boundaries are clear, consistent, and enforced. Men with weak boundaries often think they're keeping the peace. but they're slowly being chosen because of their silence, not despite it. A woman who refuses accountability will never pick the man who demands it. She'll move past him quickly, but she'll stay with the man who lets her misbehave because in that space she feels powerful. She doesn't love him more, she just feels safer in her ability to manipulate the outcome. This is why setting boundaries isn't just a display of strength, it's an act of self-respect. A man who says no calmly is not pushing her away. He's showing her where mutual respect begins. And if she walks away when that line is drawn, let her. Because the right woman isn't looking for someone she can control, she's looking for someone she can count on. The hard truth is this: women don't leave men who mistreat them, they leave men who make them confront themselves. And men who fear losing her often lose themselves first. But those who hold the line, even when it costs them, reveal something rare. They're not here to be chosen for their weakness, they're here to be respected for their strength. Number 4. Low self-esteem men are easily manipulated by beauty. When a man with low self-esteem meets a beautiful woman, he often mistakes her looks for value. He places her on a pedestal simply because she fits a physical ideal, and in doing so, unknowingly hands over his power. She senses it instantly. Not through words but through his eyes, tone, and hesitation when he speaks to her, like she's out of his league. To her, beauty is a tool, not an identity. If a man treats it as a prize, he becomes easily influenced. Even a woman who's only moderately attractive by societal standards can sense when a man is overwhelmed by her appearance. And when he's in awe, she knows precisely how far she can push. Women are intuitive in ways men often overlook. They notice what captivates your attention and how much power you give to it. If a pretty face too easily wins your attention, it signals that your standards are skin deep. Once that's clear, the dynamic shifts. She's no longer relating to you as an equal, but as someone emotionally beneath her reach. A man who makes beauty his compass often finds himself agreeing when he should object, staying when he should walk away, and apologizing when he has nothing to be sorry for. In her eyes, he becomes pliable, predictable, and forgettable. True confidence lies in being drawn to beauty without being disarmed by it. A high-value man acknowledges a woman's looks, but doesn't chase validation from them. He sees beyond surface charm and measures her character, values, and treatment of others. He doesn't tolerate poor behavior simply because it's wrapped in an attractive package. Paradoxically, that is what earns a woman's respect. When a man refuses to be seduced by image alone, she sees he has discernment. He can't be manipulated with compliments or curbs. His self-worth doesn't rise or fall based on a woman's attention. A woman respects a man who sees her beauty and keeps his center, who isn't starstruck, who can enjoy her presence without losing himself in it. This kind of man stands out not because he resists her charm, but because he recognizes it without giving it power over him. He doesn't flatter her for approval, and he speaks truthfully. He doesn't chase, he invites. And when he walks away, he does so with the calm assurance of someone who values himself more than the idea of her. Most men fail to realize that beauty alone doesn't sustain attraction, it tests it. A woman will challenge the man who worships her looks because she knows deep down that what comes easily is often taken for granted. She wants to see if you'll bend. Suppose you'll stay silent when she crosses a line. If you need to keep her, it will make you abandon yourself. And if you do, she loses interest. Not because you weren't enough, but because you gave too much too soon for something too shallow. Even when standing before beauty, the man who keeps his self-respect intact becomes unforgettable. Because he's rare, he sees her and himself too, and he doesn't let admiration turn into submission. That balance is the mark of strength. In relationships where strength meets respect, the real connection begins. Number 5. No boundaries equals no respect. When a man consistently avoids confrontation to keep the peace, he doesn't appear more understanding, he seems uncertain. A woman might not say it out loud, but she notices. What begins as a gesture of tolerance can quickly be misread as weakness. The first time she crosses a line and he lets it slide, she registers it as a test he failed. The second time he stays quiet, she begins to lose respect. And the third time he shrugs off something deeply bothering him, she realizes she can do it repeatedly. Boundaries are not barriers to connection, they are the foundation of it. Without them, there's no structure. A man who fails to set limits signals to her that his self-worth is negotiable. Once she senses that he won't speak up when disrespected, she learns she doesn't have to consider the consequences of her actions. What began as small jabs or dismissive remarks can escalate into a pattern of disregard. You, the man asked. He trained her to believe he would never push back, not because she was cruel. This dynamic doesn't just hurt the relationship, it reshapes it. The woman no longer sees him as a partner, but as someone she can mold, someone who bends under pressure rather than standing firm. No matter how much she might have felt drawn to him initially, emotional attraction starts to dissolve when respect disappears. She may not even be able to explain the shift in her feelings, but the root is always the same. He didn't protect his standards, and now she no longer trusts his strength. There's a quiet dignity in a man who calmly but firmly expresses what he will and will not tolerate. He doesn't need to raise his voice or demand control. His clarity speaks for him. When a woman knows he has boundaries and will enforce them, she may push them at first, but ultimately she respects him more. That respect lays the groundwork for deeper intimacy, because she feels safe within the container of trust and mutual respect. The paradox is simple but often missed. When you stand up for yourself, you're not risking the relationship. You're protecting the only version of it that could ever be real. And if she walks away because you upheld your boundaries, then she was never truly there for you in the first place. A man who values himself enough to walk away when respect is lost is not hard or bitter. He's clear. Clarity is the trait that separates the man she tests from the man she trusts. Number 6. Rewarding bad behavior makes it worse. There's a point in many relationships where a man, hoping to keep peace or win back affection, starts rewarding behavior that quietly erodes the foundation beneath them. He doesn't mean to. He just wants to fix the tension. So when she withdraws affection, lashes out unfairly, or shows disrespect, he responds with gifts, apologies, or pleas. He tells himself he's doing it because he cares. But what he's doing is teaching her that mistreatment is effective, that poor behavior leads to rewards. This dynamic is dangerous because it's not always apparent at first. She may not even realize she's testing boundaries, but when disrespect goes unchecked and is instead met with appeasement, it plants a subtle idea in her mind. She can act out and still be pursued. Worse, she may begin to equate dominance with value, believing that power imbalance is part of attraction. What was once affection becomes manipulation, and what was once mutual respect becomes a lopsided dance, where only one partner is afraid to lose the other. A man who apologizes for things he didn't do, buys gifts to stop arguments or begs her to stay after she's mistreated him isn't winning her heart. He's giving away his self-respect. And in doing so, he loses her respect too, because at the core of most women's emotional psychology is a deep need to feel secure in a man's emotional strength. That security is shattered when she sees him abandoning his standards to keep her close. She may not consciously reject him for it, but her attraction will fade, not because he was too nice, but because he showed that he didn't know his worth. The more he invests in repairing what she keeps breaking, the more he confirms to her that he's willing to accept less than he deserves. What might begin as one emotional bribe becomes a cycle of imbalance. He overextends, she underdelivers. He hopes his devotion will bring peace, but it only reinforces her worst habits. Instead of correcting the pattern, he deepens it, and with each repetition she becomes less inspired to change and more confident that she can stay the same. If a woman truly values you, she'll respect your boundaries, and if she crosses them, she'll want to make it right, not what you do all the work to win her back. A healthy relationship requires accountability, not just affection. If your kindness only leads to more chaos, it's not a sign to love harder, it's a signal to step back. The real connection grows from balance, not sacrifice. And if the only way to keep her is by rewarding the very behavior that's pushing you away, then it's not love, it's survival. And love was never meant to be begged for. Number 7. The root issue: childhood wounds and attachment. Often, what you see on the surface isn't the whole story. Beneath the surface of seemingly normal relationships lies a deep and unresolved issue that traces back to childhood. For many women, this stems from inconsistent love, particularly from a mother or mother figure during their formative years. This lack of stability in affection can shape how a person perceives love throughout their life. Without the unconditional love and support that should come naturally, many women search for it in all the wrong places. This pattern doesn't only affect women. Men who grew up without feeling that solid foundation of love may find themselves drawn to relationships that echo these early wounds. They might confuse love with pain or effort. In their minds, love must be earned, something that demands performance. This belief seeps into their romantic relationships, making them vulnerable to toxic dynamics, where love feels like a constant struggle, a pursuit that requires continuous approval and validation. The dangerous reality of this cycle is that men who feel a lack of unconditional love often begin to tolerate behaviors that would otherwise be unacceptable. They become accustomed to the idea that love must be worked for, something that sometimes comes at the cost of their well-being. Women who mirror this early emotional experience, who offer affection only intermittently, who give love as a reward or response to performance, are often seen as the answer. The love they provide feels like a reward after jumping through emotional hoops. The constant push-pull, the highs and lows, feel strangely familiar and even comforting. However, this pattern is not healthy. It's rooted in an unconscious need to seek approval and validation, not from the self, but from an external source. The belief that love must be earned can lead to an unhealthy attachment, where a man sacrifices his peace and happiness just to feel loved. He may stay in relationships that are emotionally draining, even abusive, simply because the dynamics mirror the emotional volatility he once knew in childhood. The solution to breaking free from this unhealthy cycle is self-awareness. The first step is to recognize that these patterns aren't the reality of what love should be. Men need to acknowledge the wounds from childhood that have been carried into adulthood. By understanding these underlying issues, they can begin to reshape how they view love and relationships. Establishing clear boundaries, knowing that love does not require sacrificing one's dignity or self-respect, is essential. Only then can they stop seeking approval from women who perpetuate unhealthy dynamics, and instead find a love that is rooted in balance, trust, and genuine emotional connection. The key is breaking the cycle before it becomes a life sentence of emotional pain disguised as love. When a man realizes that love doesn't have to be earned, he can begin to heal from the wounds of his past. This healing allows him to experience the kind of stable, nurturing, and most importantly, unconditional love that doesn't demand performance or validation, but simply exists in its purest form. You don't need to wait for someone to change to find peace. You simply need to change how you respond to disrespect. Manipulation only works when there are no boundaries in place to stop it. If a woman learns she can cross your lines without consequence, she'll keep testing how far she can go. But when you enforce your standards calmly and consistently, you shift the power dynamic back to mutual respect. Many of the issues men face in relationships aren't caused by women alone. They stem from unhealed wounds, unresolved patterns, and a lack of self-worth. Recognizing these internal struggles is the first step toward transformation. You don't have to prove your value to anyone. A high-value man knows that love should never come at the cost of his dignity, peace, or self-respect. So remember, the goal isn't to change her, it's to strengthen yourself. Because when you stop tolerating manipulation, you stop attracting it. You'll naturally begin to draw women who respect your strength, honor your presence, and contribute to a balanced relationship. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you felt manipulated or disrespected? What helped you reclaim your self-worth? Share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful insights on relationships, confidence, and self-mastery. See you in the next one.